Get started then. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the press conference for the 2020 Fall General Assembly for the U.S. Bishops. My name is Chieko Noguchi, and I am the Director of Public Affairs for the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. We have a slightly different setup this year as the bishops are meeting in a virtual format in light of the ongoing COVID pandemic. As a result, our press conference looks a little different as well. We're masked in the studio, and when we're not speaking, and we're also taking appropriate distancing measures as well. I'm here with Bishop Michael Burbidge of the Diocese of Arlington. Bishop Burbidge is the chairman of the USCCB's Committee on Communications. His Excellency has generously allowed us use of his studio, and we are connected to the USCCB studios across the Potomac River. And we're also joined by another bishop panelist connecting from his diocese. Bishop Burbidge, thank you very much for your work in leading the Committee for Communications. I'd like to hand it over to you for introduction of our panelists.
Okay. I can take this off. Thank you very much, Chieko, and thank you, members of the media, for your presence and your coverage today. The last time bishops gathered in person as a group was last November in Baltimore. The June assembly was canceled due to the COVID pandemic. In August, after consultation with the Holy See, the bishops voted to approve the convocation of this year's November meeting in a virtual format. This is the first time the bishops have met as a body in a virtual format, and so a very unique moment in history. And I have to say, I think it went very well, and all the deliberations were carried out thoroughly and off to a good start. If I could just introduce our bishop panelists for the press conference today. Archbishop Jose Gomez of Los Angeles is the president of the USCCB, and this is the Archbishop's first press conference in his role as conference president. So thank you for your great leadership, Archbishop, and for the meeting that you conducted today. Archbishop Timio Broglio of the Archdiocese for the Military Services, USA, is also the secretary of the USCCB, and he has been leading the effort on the development of the conference's 2021-24 strategic plan. The other panelist is Bishop Shelton Fabre of the Diocese of Humo Thibodeau, chairman of the Ad Hoc Committee Against Racism. The bishops vote today on the renewal of the committee, and those votes will be tabulated and revealed tomorrow. Bishop Fabre will be leading the discussion among the bishops on the pastoral response to the call for meaningful reform on racism. So they are our panelists and are certainly here to respond to any of your questions, and I'll turn this part of the meeting back to Chieko.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We'll open the floor to questions from members of the media. We have about 35 journalists on this virtual press conference today. If you have a question, I would ask that you use the private chat feature on your meeting platform and indicate to us the bishop to whom you wish to address your question. And when you're called on, please unmute yourself and you will have the opportunity to ask the question directly. Please make sure that the volume on your microphone is turned up on the device in which you're using. The first question goes to Mark Pattison from Catholic News Service, who has a question for Bishop Fabre. Mark, please go ahead with your question.
Thank you. First, given the nearly 400-year head start racism has in American society and the church, do you anticipate a time when the committee will no longer be ad hoc, but part of the permanent ongoing work of the Bishops' Conference? And second, to what extent do you share the concern voiced by Bishop Stowe about the nature of the funding of the ad hoc committee's work? The gist of his argument seems to be that outside funding has the effect that the U.S. bishops are working for a subset of the church and not the other way around.
Well, I think that the committee was established as an ad hoc committee because that was the quickest way in 2017 for the Bishops' Conference to respond and we have followed the bylaws of the USCCB with regard to ad hoc committees. I think right now it's a practical matter that the committee is asking to be renewed as an ad hoc committee. I do think that we will continue to struggle with racism, and so I see at the end of the status of the ad hoc committee, that would be in 2023 or thereabout, that it would be integrated into the USCCB structure in some fashion, because I think that we will still be continuing to struggle with racism. With regard to the funding, again, that was when it was set up, the quickest way that the bishops could respond was to look for outside funding. I think the important thing is that the work is being done. I know that we will be looking at that, but I can certainly tell you that the source of the funding is not an indication of how seriously the bishops have taken the evil and sin of racism and our desire to respond to that. So I do see that when this committee is integrated, as I think it will be, into the structure of the USCCB, that funding will be available. But I don't necessarily share all of Bishop Stowe's concerns. I do know that that the bishops have given attention to this and are dealing with the topic of racism. So the work is being done, and I do see in the future this becoming a part of the USCCB structure, and as well, I'm sure funding will be provided at that time.
Okay. The next question goes to Father Reese with Religion News Service.
Thank you. This question is for Archbishop Gomez, but any of the other bishops can chime in if they have a response also. The McCarrick report gives evidence that there was well-known problems with McCarrick with regards to seminarians long before there was any knowledge of his abuse of a minor. And yet that the evidence of that problem seems to have simply been ignored and not dealt with. Can you give us any assurance that seminarians today are being protected from sexual harassment, from sexual abuse by those in authorities, by seminary professors, rectors, priests, bishops, people who are in positions of authority over them? What structures, what processes are in place to protect seminarians and to provide avenues for them to report abuse by people who have authority over them? And frankly, as we saw with Cardinal McCarrick, people were afraid to come forward and report.
Thank you for your question. Obviously, as we said, we know, and we have said over and over again, the situation of Theodore McCarrick was a tragedy, a sad tragedy for the church, and we are grateful to the Holy Father for putting out the report on the situation. That's going to help us, as you are saying, to make sure that these things never happen again. What are we doing in the seminaries? I think, first of all, in the whole church, and especially in the United States, we have in every diocese, we have the victim assistance coordinators and the Office of Protection of Children. But also, we are very careful and dedicated to the protection of vulnerable adults. So I think in the seminaries, at least in the seminary in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, we have ongoing education of the seminarians and sessions, and especially the director of the Office of Victim Assistance goes to the seminary and she makes presentations on those issues. And obviously, we have also the possibility of the seminarians to go to a psychologist anything that they want, or be totally transparent in anything that happens in the seminaries. So that's what we are trying to do. And as I said, this is obviously a priority for the church in the United States now. And I think we are going to be very careful in educating the seminarians and making sure that these things never happen again. I don't know, the other bishops want to say something too.
I would just add, Archbishop Gomez, thank you very much. Certainly, in my experience, we have co-sponsored seminarians in 18 different seminaries. So I have a sort of a wide perspective, and I would say in all of those seminaries there are structures, but then of course also you have the vocation director, you have many other people to whom a seminarian can have recourse, and so I think that they are very effectively protected, and also, as you pointed out, they're also instructed in the importance of protection of minors and vulnerable adults. Thank you.
I don't know if we answered your question, but I think we are obviously trying to do our best and making sure that this thing never happens in a seminary.
Okay, the next question goes to Ann Thompson of NBC News.
Hi, thank you. Archbishop Gomez, there was Cardinal Cupich today raised the possibility of perhaps a statement coming from the USCCB in light of the McCarrick report as a result of this meeting. Do you plan to issue a statement at the end of this meeting about the report? And do you plan to take any specific actions at this meeting in light of the report? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. We already had a statement this past Saturday. No, it was whenever the report was out. So we sometimes we can do a report after the meeting. So it depends on what the desire of the bishops is. So but I think what we are trying to do is to, as probably you saw today in the comments of the bishops, is to try to go deep on the understanding of the whole report. It's a big report, so I think we are trying to go step by step, see what is there, and then especially to the Committee for Clergy and Religious Life, we come up with some specific issues that we want to put special, and the comments of the bishops today are very helpful for us to really know what is it that we need to address in a statement. So I cannot guarantee you 110% that this statement is going to be given at the end of the conference tomorrow, but the conference will continue to work on the report and analyze the report and hear the comments of the bishops, and also consult with the lay people in the church, and then come up with specific practices that we are going to make sure that are part of our daily life, in the life of the church in the United States. I don't know if I answered your question.
If I may, Archbishop, I know that you put out the statement or earlier the past couple of days, but what I was referring to was Cardinal Cupich's suggestion that the bishops come out with basically a statement thanking the Holy Father for having commissioned the report, sort of in support of the Holy Father. And is that possible tomorrow, or is that just his idea and nobody's going to pay attention to it?
No, we always pay attention to our brother bishops, especially to the cardinals.
Cardinals. But
so, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but would you, is there talk about putting out a statement like that tomorrow?
No, it wasn't not. I mean, Cardinal Cupich just talked about it today, so we would try to see if we do something tomorrow. But in my statement also, I said that I'm very grateful to the Holy Father, and also in my remarks today, I insisted a couple of times that the Church in the United States is extremely grateful to Pope Francis for responding to our suggestion that our investigation was made. I think Cardinal DiNardo, who was the president of the conference, asked for that. So we are extremely grateful to Pope Francis for doing the investigation and publishing the report. I think Cardinal Supich or Cardinal Tobin said that the fact that the report was published is an extraordinary new reality in the life of the Church, going to so deep in the study and investigation of this situation. So in that sense, we're totally grateful to our Holy Father. But let me see, maybe I'll talk to the bishops, and if they want to make a new statement on that, obviously I'm very, very happy to do it. Thank you.
The next question goes to Chris Gunty of Catholic Review Media.
Thank you. For Bishop Bob, the Committee Against Racism had a number of listening sessions around the country, but certainly this year that was not possible. And yet incidents occurred involving the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and others that certainly would have affected some of those kinds of listening sessions. How has the committee heard this summer from dioceses around the country about what's going on and how the Church can better respond to racism and calls for police reform?
I have talked to my brother bishops in dioceses where those events have happened, reaching out to them and offering assistance to them as they responded to the events, those tragic events. It's a sad reality that we were not able to continue the listening sessions, as you indicate, because the listening sessions were really getting people to enter into dialogue, and COVID, unfortunately, stopped that. But tomorrow, during the session, you will hear from some bishops, and they will be sharing what they have done in their dioceses in these times and how they have followed up, even with the lockdowns and things like that, with regard to responding to the letter. So I've been in communications with bishops in places where those events have taken place. And tomorrow, some of the bishops will be sharing how they have done and what they have done, even in these times, with regard to implementing the pastoral letter. And we hope, once we get beyond COVID, to pick up again on the listening sessions.
The next question goes to Dennis Sadowski of Catholic News Service.
Thank you for recognizing me. I want to go back to the McCarrick report. What assurances, and this would be for all three bishops, even Bishop Burbidge, because you're running diocese, talking to real people. What assurances can you give to the faithful that the kinds of actions that allowed Theodore McCarrick to rise through the hierarchy won't happen again? It would seem that despite all the steps that's been taken since the charter, there's still a lot of skepticism out there because as these reports keep surfacing. And that the problems may not really have subsided.
I don't know if Bishop Burbidge wants to say something.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we know is that the new third reporting system, where anyone who has concerns has that availability to bring those concerns forward. I think our public discussion of the McCarrick report, what we are learning from it, how we are changing implementations, and even just talking about the issue and inviting lay faithful to come forward to share their expertise is helping them to understand that they are going to be assistance to us in giving such assurance. So a much greater accountability among bishops, and hopefully that will give the assurance that people are looking for, but we know it's ongoing. It's ongoing to retain that trust.
Maybe also in different dioceses, we have sessions and presentations in the parishes and in schools and about these issues to help people to understand that we are totally open to anybody that has suffer as a consequence of sexual abuse. So, and educating, as we were saying before, we are trying to educate people on this issue. So I think, obviously, just the system that we already have in place in all the dioceses of the United States to make sure that there is protection of children all kinds of the priests, the lay faithful that work in the parishes and in the schools. Every single person that has something to do in the life of the church goes through the process of training and of what it is that we are called to live in our church. So I think it's clear to me that we all are trying to do our best to make sure that those things never happen. And I can assure you that at least in I think in all dioceses, as soon as we get some report, we take care of it. And obviously we are mandatory reporters and all that. So I think it is clear that we are totally committed to the protection of children now. And obviously this situation with the report on McCarrick will help us to insist that this is a priority for the Church in the United States.
I would say, as one who serves a diocese as a bishop, the role of the laity, competent and expert lay faithful in these questions, I have found it to be tremendously helpful to be able to get their assistance and their expertise, to share with them all of the particulars. So I would go back to one of the things, and the most important thing I would say, is the role that the lay faithful play in these processes right now. And my responsibilities as a bishop, I find that help irreplaceable and wisdom, and I would even say the guidance of the Holy Spirit. So I would say the involvement of the lay people in these questions is paramount in responding to your question.
And at the same time, would those be able to prevent the kinds of rising through the system that allowed McCarrick to go, to rise up? Will this lead to that ending of the clericalism that exists?
Well, I think part of the question too is that sin is a reality in our world. I think if all of us work together and we try to also in the seminaries nip this idea of that this is some sort of a system for advancement, but rather it is a system for service. And I think as we form seminarians and priests, that's a major factor, that it's not about me, but it's about Jesus Christ. And I think the more we center on Jesus Christ, the more effective that will be. That such a situation could occur again, that's certainly in the realm of possibility, but I think if we all work together, it will certainly be much more difficult for that to happen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next question goes to Ann Rogers with the Pittsburgh Catholic.
Sorry about that. Yes, my question is for Archbishop Broglio about priorities and plans. And I have two related questions. One is, could you briefly review, just tell us what are the half dozen priorities that you have chosen for the next cycle? And then you spoke about all the changes that had to be made to the original proposals as a result of COVID. Could you perhaps give us some examples of those, and particularly examples that might have some resonance with the laity? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. Indeed, the plan is actually a result of several years of input from all of the committees of the USCCB, and then also of the regional meetings, which also produce the elements of the plan. And some things obviously are constant in the formation of a pastoral plan. What happened this year, of course, is all of this work had been done. The concentration on the Eucharist, the issue of healing, response to the sexual abuse crisis, which continues to be, that response continues to be a reality in our planning, the importance of catechetical formation. Then all of a sudden we're struck with a pandemic that we weren't planning on, certainly in this whole process. So basically the detailed response of the 44 different entities that come together to produce the pastoral plan, they were invited then to, in the face of the COVID crisis, to adapt those plans, to respond, also integrating where it was possible in the plan, some sort of response that took into consideration the effects of the pandemic. And that also produced the element of the plan that addresses the pandemic, specifically asking for healing through the Eucharistic presence of Jesus Christ in his body and blood. So that's basically very, very briefly and perhaps rather in an impoverished fashion, a review of how we tried to integrate concerns about the pandemic into the pastoral plan.
Were there specifics, like maybe somebody was planning a huge conference to address some issue and that's had to be scaled back? I'm just curious about, like, what were the specific things that people had to apply in their various areas of responsibility?
It was more an issue, not so much of canceling things but it was more an issue of integrating this healing process from the pandemic, and also the fact that our churches were closed for, well, in some places for several months. And it was, how do we respond now? How do we invite people back after there's been a hiatus also in the reception of the sacraments? How do we re-emphasize the importance of sacramental ministry in the church? So it was more a question of tone rather than specific things that needed to be changed. It was more adding rather than subtracting or canceling.
Okay. The next question goes to Jack Jenkins with Religion News Service.
Hi, this is Jack. Just 1.5 questions. The first is for the whole panel. I was just wondering if you had, in response to Bishop Olson's kind of question or inquiry regarding kind of revealing who McCarrick kind of gave money to, giving Bishop Bransfield's kind of scandal, wanting to kind of reveal more transparency with regards to finances. So I wanted to see if there was any potential action on that. And then on a separate note, just to Bishop Gomez, I was hoping to ask about, you were a very early person to congratulate Joe Biden on his election after it was called last Saturday, and I just wanted to give you a chance. That's turned out to be a controversial thing to do in 2020, and I wanted to give you a chance to kind of explain why you did that so quickly, to congratulate him on becoming the president-elect and the second Catholic president in U.S. history.
Sure. On the Bishop Olson, we're just a suggestion today, so we'll obviously take it into consideration and try to see how we can address that concern. So that's for sure. So regarding the other question, it's the tradition of the USCCB, just to give just a formal, simple prayers for the election of president. So that's the only thing that we wanted to do. But I think it's clear that we just obviously will respect the election process, and it is what it is. So I think we are trying to be sensitive to that. But it was just a simple acknowledgement that what it seemed that at that moment it was the reality of the political situation in our country.
The next question goes to Chris White with the National Catholic Reporter.
Hi, this question is for Archbishop Gomez, and it's a follow-up to Ann Thompson's question of sorts. In 2018, about 24 bishops, by my count, issued statements attesting to the character of Archbishop Vigano, who had just called for the Pope's resignation. So in addition to perhaps some sort of statement of thanks toward Pope Francis, might there also be some sort of fraternal correction, to use Bishop Walk's language from earlier, of those who sided with Vigano over the Pope?
I think the suggestion of a statement from the conference to thank the Holy Father is a good idea, so I'll try to work on it. But I think we have in many ways communicated to the Holy Father that we are very grateful, as I said before. The other issue, I think it is I mean, sometimes it's difficult to understand why people are making comments. So I think it is not up to us to do that situation. I mean, we pray for one another, and I think that's the important thing. I don't know, Archbishop, if you want to say something, but I think it's clear that.
Well, I think it would be very difficult now, 2 years after the effect, to go back and in the first place, it's not the role of the conference to hand slap different bishops for comments that they might have made. And I think, one of the things in these situations where we don't have all the knowledge that we have now after having read the report, it would be wise to perhaps comment things a little bit less. But that's just my own personal opinion.
Okay, we are actually running very short on time, and so we only have time for one more question. That last question goes to Alyssa Rubio with This Month in Ministry.
Oh my.
Hello, my question is for Bishop Burbidge. In your role as Communications Committee Chairman for the USCCB, can you share with us the importance of communications in keeping the faithful connected during this COVID pandemic? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for that question. I think one of the things that we have seen throughout dioceses, throughout across the country, is how once the shutdown and the impact of the pandemic changed the way we lived and worshiped, how beautifully pastors and priests and church leaders responded to the fact of, yes, there's going to be some social distancing, but we cannot be pastorally or spiritually distanced from one another. And so we saw the immediate beginning of live streaming of masses, and people were at home, but they were seeing their parish priest. There was still the connection. And then using all the available tools and resources and technology to maintain that connection through theological programs, continuing Bible studies, on education formation, creative ways of allowing the parishioners to communicate with their priests and with their parishes, trying to do everything to stay connected. It's really what Pope Francis talks about, accompaniment. In a time of need and in a time of trial, we have to walk with one another. And it's just beautiful to see how we utilize social media to do so. It's really part of that new evangelization that we always talked about. We have the truth, we have the consolation of the gospel, and let's think of creative ways that we can communicate. And I'm just so proud of how that was done throughout our diocese, throughout the country. And as Archbishop Bergoglio mentioned earlier, we also know a continued challenge that nothing replaces the being together as the body, being together as a community. And so we, in the months ahead, and God willing, as we move out of this pandemic, we continue to stress that importance and especially being together for the celebration of the sacraments. The accompaniment was really solid in a beautiful way. I know I've heard so many stories of just picking up the phone and calling parishioners and just saying, how are you doing? Is there anything that we can do? So hopefully we've learned some lessons as we continue to reach out, not only to those who are always present in our community, but maybe to those who have wandered away a little bit or left completely. We have to continue to use these means.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you.
I'm sorry we weren't able to get to all the questions today. Thank you, Your Excellencies, for your time this afternoon, and thank you to ladies and gentlemen of the media for your participation in this press briefing. Please go to the USCCB website tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern Time to view the second and final session of the Bishops' General Assembly. Have a good evening.